back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the Series 8 story, Kill the Moon. Written by Peter Hartness and is directed by Paul Wilschmeich. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I do apologise. This would be his first of two stories. I think it's the first of two anyway. But he has directed for the series. The next will be, of course, be in the next episode. He's mainly known for his documentaries and dramas. So going into genre fiction like Doctor Who is a brand new concept to Paul. So let's hope he pulls this off. Now, this story is mainly noticeable for one thing in particular going into the story. Its title, Kill the Moon. That brings back memories of Let's Kill Hitler, where kill is in the title, and they go into kill the moon, the satellite, the natural satellite of the planet of Earth. Are you... what? And I think it was clear from pretty much the get-go that this story was going to be based mainly on its crazy, wacky ideas than anything else. But the story is noticeable in terms of what it leads to the fiction of Doctor Who for its finale, for its final scene, with the confrontation between the Doctor and Clara, which is probably easily the most memorable thing about this story and what it is most remembered, with the exception of a really big footnote in the Doctor Who canon, which has to kind of be forgotten about in every story afterwards, and is really strange re-looking at old episodes and having this concept, this now canonized Doctor Who concept, in your head every time the moon appears in the series. It's so bizarre. It's very strange, and it was surprisingly controversial, the concept, which I'll get into, because it's a big, massive spoiler for the story. I'll talk about it like halfway through this vlog. But essentially, something happens, and you either turn your brain off, realise what you're watching isn't real. I mean, this is a show about a time-travelling alien that has a box that's bigger on the inside that takes the form of a police telephone box from the 1950s/60s. It's not the most realistic series out there. So you either enjoy it for that, or you just can't take how silly this particular concept is. And these two concepts, the finale scene and the particular concept of what this show does to the moon, kind of overshadows pretty much everything else. And when you ask people about their opinions, what they thought about the episodes, mainly these ideas overshadow what they actually like or dislike about the episode, about the characters, about certain scenes, certain elements of the adventure at hand. And so there's a lot to unpack, a lot to unwind there that I think a lot of people might not talk about per se. This story also has a sort of... it's really strange. It has this kind of theme which feels intentional, but I also don't think it basically sticks to the landing, essentially. I feel like the concept is so far removed, but there's so many parallels that the story tries to make to abortions. The idea of killing or getting deceasing a baby, a fetus, before it gets the chance to be born. And yeah, there's parallels there, and I think if you see the story as a allegory for abortion, it's the groundwork is there, but I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, I do feel like abortion is a very, serious topic and a very controversial topic, and it's a conversation that needs many layers, and maybe Doctor Who might actually be a great place to introduce a younger audience to this very controversial and very dark, in a sense, concept of abortions. But I'm not going to really delve into it. I will bring it up when the story makes these kind of parallels, but I don't think the story does a good job at justifying the ideas that the parallels really work in this context. It only vaguely resembles that controversial subject. That's my opinion on the subject. So the story starts off, and we are reintroduced to Courtney Woods, a character that has previously appeared in the last episode, The Caretaker, and had appeared in flashback in the story Deep Breath, a character which a lot of people didn't like from Caretaker, and this story would also be her final appearance. Ellis George, who plays the character, does a fantastic job. In terms of kid actresses, she is really great in this role, so it's nothing against her at all. And if the character was to, for some reason, return, the appeal of the character would only be by the actress giving a really good performance for her age. I mean, it is kind of incredible how she does kind of level herself in terms of performance next to Peter Capaldi and Jodie Whittaker there, Jenna Louise Coleman, and it's really great. But here, especially here, Courtney just really is insufferable. But basically, at the start of the story, Clara and the Doctor are talking about Courtney. In the last episode, the Doctor kind of introduced her to the concept of time traveling, kind of in a light-hearted way, setting her up to be a sort of companion. And so, and it seems like Stephen Moffat, in the Moffat era, is really interested in having two companions. I find he always tries to have a pair of threes in his series. That's something I kind of noticed along doing this marathon. But that's just a strange quirk of the job, I suppose. And basically, we hear this, that Clara talks about this conversation off screen where the Doctor apparently told Courtney that she just wasn't special, that she wasn't an important person, that she is just completely annoying and useless. And there's this dynamic here where basically Courtney, she just kind of just there in the TARDIS, and taking all of these kind of devices from the Doctor. At least I think that's what's happening. I'm not quite sure. She gets sickness tablets, so she does prepare to travel again. But there's this kind of dynamic where Clara is trying to teach the Doctor to try and be a kinder person to Courtney, because this incarnation of the Doctor is a lot more not grounded, but he's a lot more serious. He doesn't lie per se. He will tell people what he really thinks to their face. For example, telling Courtney that you're not someone special, you're not someone any important in any relevance, which is kind of a breath of fresh air. If there's one thing I really like about this story, it's the characterizations of the Doctor and Clara. And their dynamic here in the story is what makes this adventure really work, as the dynamic between these two in the story does kind of break apart, and the main core of the story is that it's kind of strange because at the start of the story that basically kickstarts the adventure with the Doctor. He gets this idea, it's right, why would you wouldn't you like to be the first woman on the moon? So he takes them to the moon and using his TARDIS, and basically the idea is that he's going to make her special. He's going to put her into an adventure, into a situation where he can, where she can basically prove herself in a way. And Clara is like, okay, this might be a little bit irresponsible, but at the start of all, she first gets along with it, and they find themselves on a shuttlecraft in the year, I believe it's 2070. I could be wrong on that front, but essentially we learn that something has happened to the moon. It has gained a huge amount of gravity to the point where it's got Earth-like gravity. Something has happened to the mass of the moon, which has made it gain a lot of pounds. So so it doesn't have that slow, cloudy feel of the moon. People walk and move around just like they do on Earth. And they get introduced to these astronauts led by Ludwig, played by Hermione Norris. And this is where the story really just starts to go downhill in terms of interest. Now, one massive issue with Series 8, and you can probably get this if you watch any of my videos from Series 8, it's been a massive criticism from the series, and here it's no exception in that it kind of rips off previous stories that have done these kind of concepts for much better. A story where our characters are in a small located base on a local Earth's colony sort of thing, and you've got a handful of characters, and essentially it's all leading up to a choice, a desperate decision. This story is a homage or a rip-off of the Waters of Mars, the penultimate 10th Doctor adventure. Now, it's bad enough that you try to replicate the awesomeness of Water of Mars. Like, the Water of Mars is one of the best stories, like, in the show's history. Like, and it's kind of, like, I think it's way too early I mean, by this point, End of Time was only, like, what, 5 years ago? So, it was way too early to do a Water of Mars homage. So, I'm considering it a rip-off. But clearly, Ludwig is a parallel to, I can't remember her name, but the woman from Waters of Mars, where she's this boss lady character who she kind of puts this decision into her own hands, and our characters gain a learning, not a fascination with her, but they kind of gain a sympathy from this moral decision, this grey area. But Ludwig is just such an uninteresting character. She does nothing but just I can't think of a thing about her. And I've heard a lot of people praise the actress. I haven't seen her in anything else other than this. But in my opinion, I think Hermione Norris does a really poor job here. And I know for a fact that it isn't Paul, the director's fault, because he actually does a really great job here. The shots of the moon are atmospheric and really give you the presence of being on the moon. And when he's dealing with actors like Ellis George, Jenna Louise Coleman, and Peter Capaldi, he does a great job with them and really knows how to use the camera to its full effect. Again, which is something we will talk about at the end of the adventure. But with Ludwig, with Hermione Norris's character, I just really thought it was a very bland portrayal. It doesn't have, the character isn't that interesting at all, especially when we get to the big decision when we learn what's happening, and it puts a massive grey area onto the mission of nuclear bombs destroying whatever is creating the Earth to become big. Originally they go in believing it is some sort of alien invasion, an alien incident that is making this. So they have these nuclear bombs ready on their ship, and hopefully they could save the day and fix what is ever making the moon heavy, because the moon, because of its gravitational pull, is creating mass havoc on Earth. It's a case of show no tell of a criticism here, because we are constantly told about how Earth is going at the moment with mass tidal waves, ecosystems completely destroyed, but we never see it and we never get a feel of it. The only time that we get any visuals from Earth's perspective is we see this one character on a screen who just kind of mentions that, yeah, it's pretty bad down here. And we don't really get a grasp and a feel, and that's one of the big issues with the story. Another big issue is with Courtney Woods, a character who isn't interesting, kind of annoying. She constantly is making these kind of pop culture reference. I don't know if you call them pop culture reference. Constantly mentioning like Twitter. Oh, do you have a DVD? Do you have a video game system in the TARDIS? But what's worse about her character is that she brings absolutely nothing to the table here. And it seems really strange because they seem to be building up this character, and here it's like they've completely realised, it's like they've realised they've got nothing to do. She doesn't do anything impactful to the story. She doesn't grow or learn from anything. Then when she learns about this kind of grey area, she just kind of like, okay, doctor, I want to get involved. Send me back, and I want to come back and try and solve the situation, help the situation as much as I can. But she doesn't say anything. She doesn't impact the conversation, and she doesn't actively participate in anything apart from just being there. It's really bizarre. It's really strange. Now here is, I'm going to put a massive spoiler warning, because this is a big plot element of the story, and it's treated like a massive spoiler, and it is a kind of a massive spoiler because it's something that broke the internet when this story aired. So this is your chance, if you haven't seen the episode and you plan to, turn away now. Ready? The moon, Earth's satellite that's been there for thousands of years, that we've studied and studied and studied, turns out to be an egg. You heard me correctly. An egg for a ginormous space dragon. It's one of those concepts which I think is so silly, so ridiculous, but because Doctor Who is usually ridiculous, I personally really love this concept. It's so stupid. It's so baffling that, like, okay, I can't take it serious on any stretch in the word. The story tries to make it its core dramatic tension. I just realised I didn't talk about the spider-like aliens in this story. Despite them being some great visuals, and shot very well again by Paul, who gives them a great atmosphere to the story, they didn't really leave much of an impression other than the revelation that they are actually bacteria protecting the unborn dragon. And essentially the Doctor gives humanity a choice, or at least gives our main three characters the choice. Either release the nuclear bombs, destroying the dragon and saving everybody on Earth, or letting the dragon be born and, or most likely destroying humanity in the process, or at least killing a majority of people, or at least that's what it's left up to be. And despite this being a really interesting dynamic by those contexts, by those words, there's so many aspects, especially when you rewatch this episode, that falls flat. When this concept is brought up, when the idea that the moon is an egg for a giant space alien dragon, the first thing that Ludwig does is ask how do they kill it. Automatically drawing a black and white line on the grey concept, because it clearly puts the concept of, right, humanity or the dragon, quickly just goes, oh yeah, the dragon, of course. I mean, humanity, like, don't be selfish, it's a baby, it doesn't have a choice yet. It hasn't even been born. Like, you can't kill an innocent creature. Now, this is again what I mentioned, as in, this feels like a not parody, what's the word I'm looking for? It feels like the subtext is that it's talking about abortion. There's also some lines where they kind of even bring up the fact where it's like you can't blame a baby for being born, or something along the lines of you can't blame a baby to kick. However, the concept of the story is so grey, but our characters and the way it's portrayed, it so clearly wants you to take Clara's side on this, in that you don't kill the dragon, that the story goes out of its way to try and just blank out any chance that you, the audience member, would make it a complicated decision. But I do love the idea that the Doctor here, what the Doctor does in this story, I actually really like this element where the Doctor's just like, sorry, I can't help you. It's not my moon. I'm a Time Lord. Earth is not my planet. This is a defining moment in a human history. If I change it, I'm altering human history. That would be against Time Lord protocol or something. Taking the practice wheel of the bicycle, as the Doctor likes to put it. And he essentially just leaves to let Clara, Courtney and Ludwig solve the situation. But when you realise later on, the concept really doesn't work, because, like I said, the story tries so hard to try and get you from Clara's point of view, with Ludwig really just going, just like, there's nothing really that justifies her thought process. The story is so clearly just going, right, Ludwig is not thinking straight and Clara is. Despite the fact that there is clearly, like, the concept of, like, everybody is in danger if the egg escapes. And so they come up with this concept, a really, really dumb concept, where Clara basically communicates to everybody on Earth and says, right, basically she tells them the what's happening, and she basically says, if you turn your lights on if you want the egg to live, turn your lights off if you want us to release the nukes. And despite the fact that, Earth, you only really get to see one side of it, and only one side of it will be visible enough, dark enough that light would be visible from space like that. And also as well, it's just a really poor system when you think about it too hard. Like, it's really, really dumb. It's really dumb. And the basically everybody on the planet of Earth turns their light off to signal, yes, we want to destroy the creature so we can live. And the story basically treats this as a darker moment, and our characters basically are considering, and they're just about to release the nukes, or at least explode the nukes, only for Clara to basically butt in on the human's decision, which was her plan, by the way, to try and come to a resolution on this dilemma, and she stops the nukes bombs, and the Doctor basically comes in. It's like, you three come with me, and he takes them outside on Earth, and we see from a distance the egg hatching, and we basically discover, and this is one of the things that really just ruins it, because Clara made a traumatic decision to let this egg live by endangering thousands upon thousands of lives. But it doesn't matter, because the Doctor didn't tell them that the eggshell would have actually just evaporated because of the way it was structured. And there was just a very likely possibility that he didn't tell anyone about this. This wasn't in the cards for Clara and Ludwig and Courtney, which, by the way, Courtney says and does nothing. And the Doctor kind of praises her and adds her into the battle of, well, you did it, you did it. An astronaut, a school teacher, and a pupil from Coyle School. But Courtney does nothing. And the fact that this is a final story, her character just seems like, what was the point of her? What did she contribute? What did she learn after this? It's ridiculous. But it does, again, lead into a great dynamic aspect of the story, where by the end of the story, and this is the scene that everybody loves, and I'll put my hand up, I love it as well, and is probably what this story is mainly memory for, and people who love this story mainly love it because of this one scene. And essentially, Clara breaks down at the Doctor. No, how dare you? But what's great about this, and which is really just baffling, because we've had a story which has had this complicated dilemma and has developed it so poorly. But right at the end, we have another complicated dilemma with two characters from completely different viewpoints on the same situation. And it has worked so well, where the Doctor, he's kind of cheerfully and he's kind of bombastic, he's kind of like proud of himself and proud of Clara. It's like, well done, you did it. I had faith in you that you would make your own decisions and you did the right ones. And you can kind of see that, because you can see that like he did this to try and push humanity, to try and push Clara, tried to push Courtney, but like I said, she does nothing, to make a complicated decision and make the right choice. But Clara doesn't see it that way. Clara sees the Doctor showing off, him patronising her, especially with that comment about the taking the support wheels off the bike. She reuses that against the Doctor. Great bit of writing there. Peter Harness really captures these two characters. It's also again important to note that this story was written in 2011, years before Peter Capaldi, a year before even Peter Capaldi got the role, let alone any sort of production on the series. But Peter Hartness described the writing process as the 12th Doctor works much better in this story because of how he developed the 12th Doctor and Clara, and it's easily to see why. And Clara's just like, no, how dare you? I needed you, your support, I needed your help, and you just kind of threw me in the deep end. You were my friend, and you know what? You can't just abandon and just leave us to our fate like that. You live on this planet, you come to this planet, you breathe out air, that's your moon as well. You just abandoned us, you just left us to our own devices. And what's really great is that Clara's really upset. Jenna Louis-Coleman is acting her ass off, but you can see both points of the view. maybe the Doctor's wrong, maybe Clara's wrong, maybe they're both right, maybe they're both wrong. But you can understand, at least from their point of view, why they are thinking this, why the Doctor is proud about this, why Clara is really upset about the Doctor about this. This is great television, and it's only 2 minutes of the end of the episode. I mean, the characters were really good in this story, but in terms of what like really hit it off the park, it's that last 2 minutes. And so that is Kill the Moon. Overall, it's not a good story. Though, like I said, there's some really great moments, and it's mainly down to the Doctor and Clara, which is really fascinating to think, because Clara was a very bland character in Series 7, and Series 8, she has had like a rocky character development, especially when she's around Danny. But this story, she's rarely with Danny, only appearing with Danny at the very end and going for him for emotional support, basically explaining to him the situation. So their relationship isn't an aspect of the story. And when Clara and Doctor are developed in this story, absolutely gold. And makes me wish that more of the story was this, because everything else, Courtney Woods, Ludwig, the dilemma at the end of the story, just completely and utterly falls flat on its face. And sadly, like Caretakers, like Listen, Series 8 is really struggling for good stories at the moment. So, on that note, join me next time as the Doctor takes Clara on a leaving on good terms of adventure, as he takes her to one of fiction's greatest, one of the fiction's greatest landmarks in vehicles, but in space. And it's also haunted. So join me next time for The Mummy on the Orient Express. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!